Hello, everyone, and welcome to SAP Industries Live Leading with Innovation, an ongoing series exploring how companies in more than 20 industries are adapting and transforming in the wake of extraordinary changes. My name is Bob Evans. I'm delighted to be the moderator for this SAP Industries Live series. In today's virtual event, we'll take a look at the fast-changing banking industry, where companies there are racing to the cloud in unprecedented numbers for not only their core processes, but also we're seeing some interesting cases of disruption from the fintech sector as well. To discuss those changes, we've got two great speakers. Falk Riker is Global Head of Banking for SAP, and Dirk Cruz is CEO of the newly formed SAP Fioneer business unit. And of course, you, the audience, are welcome participants in this conversation. We hope you'll use the chat feature on your screen to share your questions and comments. Over the past 20 months, every industry has been rocked by global changes, and certainly the banking industry is no exception. Banks around the world are trying to balance a couple of competing initiatives. On the one hand, the need to be more innovative and to boost agility, and on the other hand, to ensure they maintain areas around risk, resiliency, and scale. So Dirk and Falk will be discussing today those topics, including these four categories: how to boost the speed of innovation, how to create superior customer experiences, how to maintain and improve cybersecurity at global scale, and how to accelerate the digital move to the cloud. Falk, that is quite aggressive agenda here. How are customers handling that? What are you hearing from them these days?
So, first of all, Bob, thanks for having me. Delighted to be part of your podcast. So when I speak to executives from banks around the world these days, following topics come up on a regular basis. First, customer experience. In a digital environment and banking happening mainly via digital channels in future, you can only be successful by providing a superior customer experience. Digital champions in other industries have demonstrated over and over again. Customers expect personalized offerings at the right time, at the right place. The second topic that comes up all the time is data. Every digital transformation should go along with a renewed data strategy. Data intelligence and insight is key to understand customer needs and preferences, and therefore directly linked with the first topic I mentioned, customer experience. So consequently, if you lack data insight, you cannot provide a compelling customer experience. The third topic that is regularly mentioned is operational efficiency. Now we see new competitors entering the market, and they run very lean operations. Now the fact that we can do digital banking, that most of banking is happening digital, lowers the market entry barriers. So they run very lean, as I said, and they have consequently much better cost efficiency ratios. So banks need to continue to optimize their business processes and streamline their IT operations. For example, by leveraging new technologies such as machine learning and robotic process automation, as well as taking advantage of cloud services, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, without making any compromises to security and compliance. And the fourth topic, Bob, that is regularly mentioned, and probably the most important one to be successful in future, is talent for the next generation of banking. Banks must attract, and not only attract, but also retain the needed talent for the digital transformation. And that talent requires different skills than you have seen in the past. So it needs digital experts, data scientists, and cybersecurity specialists, just to mention a few roles. So what we're hearing already, the war for talent is on, and it is key for banks to get the right resources to be successful going forward. So I will say so, for all these topics I just mentioned, SAP and SAP Fioneer provide software and technology solutions. Combined with our deep business process knowledge and industry expertise, we are well equipped, Bob, to address the most urgent need in the banking industry. Now, when you look at SAP, SAP is business transformation and technology partner at the same time. That sets SAP apart from others. And consequently, we have been able to grow our customer base over the past years to more than 14,000 banks and financial service providers in more than 100 countries.
Falk, thank you for that overview there. And Dirk, it's interesting here as Falk described some of that, both what the global banking team at SAP is doing, and then also the emergence this year of the SAP Fioneer business unit, of which you're the CEO. Could you talk a little bit about how the two companies working together are trying to meet this need? I guess the overall theme you talked about of driving digital acceleration in banking.
Absolutely, and good afternoon from Munich. Thanks for having us today. Falk was pointing to the key topics in the industry, talking about customer experience, data insight, the operational efficiency, but also the talent. I would actually add a fifth dimension to it. What we currently see is that we can't see banking or financial services in isolation any longer. What we see is that the customer journeys are going across industries, and financial services and banking products and services are becoming quite often an attached business. And that is actually pushing even more the need for change in the industry. And the need for change in the industry was actually one of the key driving forces for us at SAP and SAP Fioneer, thinking about what could be a bold move in the industry, how can we better support our customers from a transformation point of view, but also from an innovation point of view. And that's the reason why we decided back in April to announce the joint venture of a private equity partner, DEDIC, and SAP. And together we are focusing even more on the financial services industry. So your question, Bob, how do we actually work together? We are a speedboat within the SAP family. We are focusing on purely the financial services industry topic, core banking, core insurance, IFRS 9, IFRS 17 subledger solutions. That's what we focus on. We do this under the umbrella of SAP. We are committed to the technology platform of SAP, especially the industry cloud and the business technology platform. We do this in a joint go-to-market. We jointly leverage the strong ecosystem we have in financial services, and we do this with a joint development. That's how we approach the market for banks and insurance.
So, Dirk, not at all an either-or case between SAP Fioneer and SAP Banking, but rather it's a both.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We have a lot of, let's say, solutions. Take, for instance, the office of the CFO, where it requires, on the one hand side, a financial services data platform. That's one of our SAP Fioneer solutions. It requires a subledger solution. But on the other side, we have the strong presence of SAP with S/4HANA, general ledger, planning, consolidation, and we do this jointly and serve the market jointly.
Great. I just want to remind you folks in the audience, we're eager to hear your questions and comments. Again, you can use the chat feature on your screen to share those. And Falk, I wonder, would you just expand on that a little bit from your perspective about how the creation of Fioneer doesn't disrupt what SAP Global Banking is doing, but actually enhances it?
Well, from my perspective, Bob, it comes down to more focus, more investment, and more end-to-end solutions, which ultimately is what our customers are expecting from us. So together, SAP and SAP Fioneer, as Dirk just explained in the finance example, we can serve banks even better than we do today. Also, let me please note that the majority of solutions that apply to banks stay with SAP. This includes solutions for finance, spend management, human capital management, customer experience management, sustainability, as well as our platform and technology assets. In all these areas, SAP has a market-leading position. And customers shouldn't expect anything less from us in the future. In regard to partner expectations, let me point out that partners continue to play a key role in our growth plan. We rely on them to scale our business. We encourage partners to innovate on our platform and join our ecosystem. Obviously, with SAP Fioneer being the big building block in our industry cloud strategy. There will be no change in direction in terms of partner strategy. They are an instrumental part of our strategy, and I can only call to action for our partners. Let's double down on financial services together.
Hey, Falk, I thought it was fascinating what Dirk said a moment ago too about the primacy, which you talked about as well, of the customer experience. But Dirk mentioned too that it isn't the traditional type of customer experience sort of siloed in the financial services business, but it's moving across industries, right? It's not in isolation. How can you help marry those together across the two organizations?
So first of all, when you think about this convergence of industries and financial service becoming part of the value chain of a lot of industries, yeah, I think it's key that banks reach out to the new ecosystem which are rising in the market and embed their services into these new ecosystems and financial services chains. How can SAP and SAP Fioneer help? Now think about, we have 400,000 corporate customers out there. They're using SAP systems, and we have banks on the other side that connect with these systems. So jointly, SAP and SAP Fioneer with the banks can do great things.
I think, Bob, if I may add to what Falk just said, I mean, if we look, for instance, on the B2C business, we see already today, on those mega platforms, customers are buying goods like, mobile phones, computers, etc. In all of those customer journeys, the payment service or even the financing is already included in the mega platform. Yeah, the same is on the insurance side. I mean, you're booking your travel, and insurance is just the last step of your customer journey. Yeah, or we have mobility services here in Europe where the insurance for the car is incorporated in the mobility service of the car manufacturer. And that's what when I said initially it's becoming a attached business, that's quite obvious in the B2C space. But what Falk was referring to is also true in the B2B business. The B2B business is much more complex, but we have seen a lot of, digitization effort within the company so far. But I think the next step is really connecting the enterprises with each other. I mean, what could banks and insurance companies actually do if they would have insight in the finance processes or the supply chain processes of the corporate clients? Things like cash management, treasury management, trade finance, supply chain financing could be integrated, and that's why we call it embedded financial services in those processes. And that's what we see. Those are the big topics coming up in the future. We call it embedded financial services. It's around ecosystems and platform business. And that's also one of the reasons why we actually established SAP Fioneer in a joint venture, because it requires a different go-to-market. It requires different commercial models, also from a software vendor point of view. So with SAP Fioneer, we get a lot of additional capital in order to invest into those innovations, but we also have the autonomy to build these new businesses.
Yeah, Dirk, that's very helpful. Thanks. And I wanted to ask almost like a philosophical question. So is it fair to say, is SAP now in the fintech business with SAP Fioneer?
I think it's actually a little bit of both. I mean, we have quite often, we at SAP, we talk about co-opetition. On the one hand side, I think fintechs can be and are our clients. We have a lot of software assets, but also a lot of customer access. We have our business technology platform and our industry cloud strategy, where we can actually join our forces and come up with a combined offering. But there also might be some spaces where we're actually competing with the one or the other company in certain areas. But if you look actually on our main focus areas, which are finance and risk in banking, end-to-end vertical solutions on the core banking side, commercial lending being a very big topic, or the embedded financial services, I think it's more a partner approach, also together with SAP and the industry clouds strategy, than actually a competition.
So, Falk, you had talked about SAP, 14,000 banking customers in all parts of the world. What's going on there? What's your sense of their level of preparedness and almost like enthusiasm? Are they ready to go ahead and do this, acceleration into the digital world?
Absolutely. There is no bank that doesn't really think about this. And obviously, there are some banks that are better at it and some banks that are lagging behind a bit. But in general, every bank knows that this is a do or die exercise. Yeah. So if you don't change, if you don't digitally transform your business processes, then you will not be successful in the new world of banking. Yeah. When you not think outside the box going forward and just believe you can do what you have done in the past, you will probably not survive in the future. So Dirk mentioned the example of embedded banking. Let me give an example of an ecosystem. Housing. Yeah. So traditionally, banks have very much focused on a mortgage loan. But when it comes to an ecosystem of housing, there are a lot of other related business services which banks could play a vital role to bring it together. So banks need to think beyond just providing a loan. They need to deliver a business outcome. And the business outcome is that the customer actually wants to own that home and wants to move in that home. And with that, it's not only done with a mortgage loan. You can see similar examples around health, around mobility. And that's where banks need to think creatively. That's the digital economy. Yeah, that will change the things banks are offering, and banks ultimately will become digital platforms offering banking services as well as related non-banking services.
Falk, would you have said, 5 years ago that, this time was coming when banks would become digital platforms offering, a range of business services, whether they're in the traditional banking model or not?
5 years ago, a lot of banks smiled at me when we brought this topic up, which we already saw in other industries coming. The digital transformation is not a phenomenon of banking. We have seen entire industries disappearing. SAP is active in 25 industries. We have seen digital transformation going on since a decade or more. And with that experience, we were able to, let's say, predict what will happen in banking and the things that will come. And I think banking has looked for a very long time within their industry. And what banking needs to learn now is that digital business means competing not just with banks, but with new entrants like fintechs, but also non-banks going forward. And these are the type of thinking and scenarios they need to have in mind to be prepared for the competition in the future.
Yeah, great. Dirk, please.
I was just about to add, I think your question was 5 years back. I think the last 18 to 24 months and the pandemic situation, that was really the event. The pandemic worked as a catalyst for the digitization. So even in the German and the European market, which has been a little bit more, let's say, carefully from a cloud transformation point of view in the past, we have seen that this completely changed in the last 1.5 years, driven by the pandemic. So I think I would completely agree with Falk. I mean, right now, most of our clients have really understood that there is a need for change. And I think also the way how they use cloud in order to react to this change, in order to change and transform their business right now is really the point in time.
Yeah. Jörg, we were bringing up the cloud. Yeah, I think that's another remarkable thing that had happened over the past 5 years. So when you spoke to banks 5 years ago, and this was the early state of cloud discussions, specifically the large banks said, no way. We have our own data centers, our own security is better than everything else. Yeah, we have invested a lot of money into these data centers, and this will not go away in the short term. Now, what we are seeing, specifically and driven by the pandemic and other things, the economy obviously as well, is a dramatic shift to cloud. And I'm personally not aware of any bank that is not thinking about leveraging cloud technology, if it is infrastructure, platform, or software as a service. So it's for me, probably when I look back over the last 3 to 4 years, the most surprising things, banks that came up in the early stages said, I'm not interested in your cloud offerings. Today you come into the same bank and they said, you don't have to show up if you don't have a cloud offering. So it's completely changed and will change the dynamic, obviously, as well in the banking industry.
And in the past, Falk, I think the 2 or 3 years back, the majority of the discussion was around infrastructure as a service. How can we improve on the operational efficiency side? And that's one of the topics we had in the beginning. But these days, the discussion is really how can we use the cloud and software as a service to standardize our business and to get ready for new business models. And that has also changed dramatically over the last, I would say, 1 or 2 years.
Yeah, Dirk, that brings up an issue about, across not just banking, financial services, but every industry. There seems to be still among some companies the very strong desire to move forward, but a little bit of a question is, where do I get started here? Do you have a sense now that as this, right, it's not just beginning in banking, but as both you and Falk have described here, this has been at top of mind now for a year and a half or 2 years for a lot of companies. Where do they need to dig in first and get started? Because, Dirk, you just described infrastructure was an early area of emphasis, but now that point out, it seems like we've got to get outward toward the engagement with customers in new and different ways. So how do you advise your banking clients about where to get started or where they can make the biggest impact most quickly?
Yeah, I think these days, our recommendation really is to look at it from an end-to-end process point of view, look at it as cloud being an enabler. But I think the biggest benefits are really, if you take a look on the end-to-end processes, if with the move to the cloud, with the transformation, think about standardizing your business, whether it's the accounting and the finance and the risk, or whether it's a business topic like retail banking or commercial banking. But there are huge benefits out there from a standardization, process standardization point of view, and that would be my recommendation. Don't only look at it from an infrastructure point of view, but redesign your processes. And then I think next to that, there is a third pillar, which is really the ecosystem topic. That is a topic in itself, where you actually need the cloud in order to be the platform for a completely new business, like Falk just mentioned, the housing, the mobility, the embedded financial services topic I referred to earlier.
Great.
And Bob, let me add to Dirk's point here. Yeah, when you think about the move to the cloud, yeah, if you just do a technical shift, you will hardly achieve your business objectives. the move to the cloud has to go along, like Dirk said, with a review of the existing business processes. And that is not always that easy, especially in large, complex organizations with processes that have been in place for decades. So here, we need to take a close look, and obviously standardized processes, best practices, cloud solutions give you a benchmark, how processes look like. And then you can still, make up your mind, is that how I want to run the business? But I will say so much. There must be a very good reason not to standardize, but to differentiate. You differentiate where you believe you have a competitive advantage. You standardize where you don't have a competitive advantage. And there are a lot of processes in the back office, in the middle office, that are really not differentiating in terms of getting a competitive advantage.
No, that's great, gentlemen. Thank you. We have a question from Alexander, who wants to know, currently SAP has different products that cover more or less the same topics. For example, SAP CML and SAMLM. What is your strategy in this area? Do you plan to continue supporting both products or build one cloud product?
Dirk, I believe that's you,
Yeah, I can take that first. So it's one of our core banking products, and it's correct that we have in some areas we have more than one product. So looking forward, we definitely have two things in mind. One is we have to move to the cloud, and that requires two things. One is open core. So we will, as SAP Fioneer, massively invest in what we call the open core to actually API the application, the backend, to make it flexible and compliant and composable into whatever the process requirements are. So there is an investment and consolidation needed on the core side. And then what you will see from an SAP Fioneer perspective in the future is a much stronger focus on end-to-end processes. We can't do this in a first step in all the verticals, but commercial lending, SME banking, those are definitely two very interesting market segments where we will invest into end-to-end processes. So yes, we will consolidate. Yes, we will support the move in the cloud, and that is especially from an open core perspective and from an end-to-end process coverage point of view in an investment we are doing from the SAP Fioneer side.
Great. Gentlemen, tell me, with all these changes that you've described going on, the new mindset and the significance of the opportunity that exists in the banking industry, how are the conversations that each of you are having here with some of your clients changing? Is it the CIO, no doubt, continues to play an incredibly important role, but are you also having conversations with other members of the C-suite about these massive initiatives?
Absolutely. That's another thing that has changed over the past years. I think the CIO obviously stays important. Yeah, he has a voice at the table, but business is more and more included in making decisions because at the end of the day, they make the revenue. Yeah, we also see new roles evolving: Chief Digital Officer, Chief Innovation Officer, Chief Data Officer. Yeah, so there are lots of emphasis on really getting this right and driving digital change, digital transformation in banks.
Dirk, any thoughts on that?
I can absolutely support what Falk just said. I think depending on the topic, you always have two or three participants like the CDO or the Chief Data Officer. If you think of finance and risk or the new ESG requirements, green finance, that's a data topic. You have the Chief Data Officer on the table. And in some areas where it's really about changing the business model, you even have the CEO on the table.
Yeah. Well, I think that goes back to what, Falk, I believe you mentioned earlier, that these things of industry-specific knowledge and relationships and capabilities, they're not new to SAP, right? These things you've been doing for decades. So I'm wondering, too, there's you hear a lot of these smaller companies coming up and they're saying, I can help banks or financial or, across any industry, I can help you do this or this. But it seems to me that customers are looking for more an end-to-end set of capabilities and solutions. Right?
And you don't implement technology for the sake of technology. Mm-hmm. You implement technology for a business outcome. Yeah. And so if you don't apply technology to a specific business problem, to a specific business process, you're just playing. You're just playing around. Yeah. And quite frankly, you're wasting your time. Yeah. So it is absolutely key to bring the IT view together with the business view. If you're not able to do that, and that's where a lot of transformations, unfortunately, fall short, because they are looking at it just from one side to technology side and say, hey, we have implemented AI solutions. And they have some prototypes. But do they ever go live? Maybe not. Yeah. So you have nice examples, but no business benefits. So that's why I believe, the combination of technology on the one side and business process intelligence is the key to be successful with your digital transformation. And that's where SAP and SAP Fioneer are spot on.
Volker, are you optimistic that more and more companies are pushing those two formerly separate worlds together? About the IT strategy and business strategy, are they coming closer?
Yeah, absolutely. We are seeing that. Yeah. So obviously, you still want to get some benefits from centralization in the IT side. You don't necessarily want to have every single department having their own IT strategy. So you need to have some kind of consolidation and alignment on the IT side. You need to have certain rules, I would say, or certain objectives and guidelines you set for the IT strategy. But in general, you want to drive your strategy jointly with the business. You want to have the buy-in from the business, because if you don't have that, again, the likelihood that you achieve your business outcome and your business case is low.
Yes. Dirk, we have a question for you from the audience. Ramo is asking, when are we going to see not only solutions for big banks, but also SAP Fioneer supporting dedicated industries like automotive finance and finance banking ideas like equipment as a service?
Yeah. We are currently in the process. We just finalized our investment strategy just a couple of weeks ago. And when we, did the joint venture with SAP, we made explicitly in our discussions and the contracts that looking forward, financial services is not only traditional banking and traditional insurance, but we're also covering fintechs, insurtechs. So to the question, also smaller companies, and we're also addressing what we call captives. So we do recognize the change in the market. Our customer group is kind of changing, and pushing forward the cloud. We will also make sure from a technology point of view that our solutions will meet the requirements also of smaller and mid-sized companies in the future. That's obviously the beauty of the cloud, that you don't need to be a big bank with 100,000 employees to implement software, but it can be easily consumed out of the cloud. So it's part of the strategy, and you will see that in the future.
Okay. Volk, a question for you from Hani, who wants to know, would having central finance now help as a step before going to S4?
That depends on your individual situation. There are scenarios, obviously, and therefore we have the solutions where central finance makes total sense. But I wouldn't say it in general. It depends on your specific situations, on your existing landscape, and what steps you want to take in the next, in the foreseeable future.
Right. All right. And for Dirk and Falk, both of you, a question from Serdar wants to know, does the banking industry see blockchain as a technology that cannibalizes the current commercial status of banks, or are they looking into it possibly to embrace so they can make it part of their digital transformation?
To me, if I can get started, I think it's probably not the question about replacing banks and banking technology, but about delivering a add-on wherever it makes sense, and therefore it has to be integrated from a process point of view. If I look a couple of years back, I think there was a lot of enthusiasm around blockchain. I think it's a comprehensive technology, but I think it's not the question whether it will completely replace banking technology or banks. But there are a couple of specific use cases where it makes sense, and we jointly have to make sure that we can get it integrated. I don't know, Falk, how you think about it.
Exactly the same way as you. So blockchain is something to consider for processes in the payment space, in the trade finance space. When you think about security settlement and there are obviously compelling use cases, but blockchain is not the answer to every challenge.
So if I could, I wanted to ask a question here. Start with you, Falk, and then Dirk. I'd love to get your thoughts as well. Falk, I thought it was fascinating as you described, the sort of the cornerstone issues facing your banking clients today. And you mentioned talent, right? I don't think that maybe in prior years that would have made that very short strategic list. And it just seems so vital today that for that sort of world-class talent they need to have. So what sort of image or approach do you recommend that banks take about trying to ensure that they're getting world-class talent coming in to, as you said, build this new generation of digital bank?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a picture the society has of banks. Yeah, and it's not always a favorable picture. A lot of people associate with banks, very detailed hierarchies, legacy systems, processes that haven't changed for decades, and. Yeah, that is not the case anymore in more cases. So there is a bit of image marketing necessary, but specifically, I think, to attract that new talent, you're competing with the tech companies, you're competing with fintechs like SAP, Fioneer. Yeah, so you need to have an environment that attracts the younger generation. That means agile environment, less hierarchies, first-class technology. Yeah, so act and think a bit more like a tech company would be my recommendation to most of the banks. And you see that as well. They are going in that direction. They have new tech centers, and they are actually, increasing their efforts to attract these younger talent. But as you said, I remember 10, 20 years ago, no problem for banks to get the best talent. Today, best talent goes probably in other industries. And that needs to change by having a better image and obviously making clear, that it is very attractive to work in a bank. And I still believe that.
I mean, looking back in the past, IT was there in order to support the banking business, and today IT technology is the enabler. Yeah. So and that's basically what banks should have in mind when recruiting their talent. You actually need both, and this does not only apply to banks, but also I think it's also to an extent the challenge on the technology side. I mean, we also need both areas of expertise, if you wish. We need the technology experts, but as I said earlier, we also want to extend into more end-to-end solutions. So we also need to understand processes in the business, and it actually applies to both, to the banking industry and also the technology industry. I think the cultural challenge is a little bit bigger on the banking side than on the tech provider side, because there is just a different legacy. But I think skill-wise, it's pretty much the same in the banking industry. We need to get both areas, the business understanding, the process understanding, but also the great technology expertise to make a great and unique banking experience or offering.
Yeah, I just think it's brilliant that both of you gentlemen have brought this up, because you could say you laid out very clearly and I think very persuasively the technological challenges that banks have to face to accelerate into this digital future. But that's not going to happen if they don't have the right people on board. So it's so good that you mentioned that. It's not a soft issue. That's about as hard an issue as a bank could face today. So great thoughts there. I wanted to share. Hani asked an additional question. He said, how can companies ascertain the end-to-end processes orchestrated in SAP?
Can you repeat the question, please? Sorry.
Yeah.
I think it's broadly, how can companies understand, or how can they get a better fix on using SAP to orchestrate end-to-end processes in banking?
Let me start, and then Dirk, please feel free to chip in. I think the beauty of SAP is that we are not just a point solution provider. In everything we do, we try to think in end-to-end business processes. When you think about our procurement suite, when you think about our finance suite, when you think about our talent management suite, when you think about and now SAP Fioneer's banking solutions, we always have the end-to-end process in mind. That was our vision from the beginning, and that stays our objective. So how can we help our customer with that? With SAP, you buy this end-to-end solutions, and we help you with the respective business process intelligence as well, to understand, how you compare, for example, with other customers that are using the same software. We can run benchmark analysis. We can run gap analysis on this data, and so helping our customers to optimize their business processes.
And I think looking back, especially in the cross processes and cross topics like finance and procurement and HR, SAP has been really brilliant from an end-to-end process point of view. And we had to realize that we also need to invest into it from a banking process point of view, and that's again the reason why we have SAP Fioneer. So we're picking now our key verticals like the commercial lending, like a couple of plays on the insurance side, where we actually broaden our process coverage and deliver much more to our clients than only the back-end solution, core banking or core insurance, but also something like a lending workplace covering the end-to-end processes. So I think we have it in our DNA to look at it from an end-to-end process point of view, and SAP Fioneer will definitely do that from a core banking and core insurance point of view.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. And the questions continue to fly in here from the audience. A good one. Do you see the chance for the SAP CX Financial Service Accelerator playing an important role for the end-to-end process for bank and insurance?
The Accelerator is a partner solution, and it's part of our industry cloud strategy. So it's definitely an important element. I think the use cases is again depending on the customer situation, on the vertical we are talking about, but it's an important element of our ecosystem and our partner landscape, and it will play a role also in the future.
I love this pointed and very specific questions, by the way, Bob.
Yeah. Well, Eduardo asks, is there a plan to be more competitive with core banking solutions to reach small banks and credit unions, for example? It's a very promising market.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure whether the audience is aware, but we do have already today what we call cloud for banking. So a very focused solution, especially for small and mid-size banking clients. We have already a couple of neobanks running on the cloud for banking platform, and that's definitely a strategy as part of our cloud strategy, which we want to see more in the future in the different verticals. Whether it fits exactly to this specific customer situation is something we need to analyze. But yes, we are targeting also smaller clients and not only the big traditional banks and insurance companies.
And Dirk, that's something that you've talked about from the early stages when the whole Fioneer emergence came about, right? And that's always been part of the plan for SAP Fioneer.
Absolutely. I mean, in the past, SAP is especially strong in cross applications where you have 10,000, 100,000 customers. Now it's SAP Fioneer's task to make sure that we're pushing the financial services components into the FSI industry. And for us, it's very interesting if we have 50, 100 clients on our core banking and core insurance solution. So that's why we have SAP Fioneer. And especially, the trend of the cloud, in the cloud, is something which enables actually also smaller clients to adopt best technology, best processes of SAP and SAP Fioneer.
Great, gentlemen. Thank you. These questions are coming in. We'll try to just jump on a few more here, please. There's a question about how is SAP integrating robotic process automation into your orchestration logic? Is it SAP's own products, or are you using RPA technology from other firms?
So it's both. So we have done acquisitions in that space and acquired technology which we embed in our business processes, in our solutions. But we have an open platform. We encourage partners as well to provide their applications so that they can be embedded in our solutions.
Perfect. Thank you. And I think we had one last one here. Pardon me. I'm just trying to decipher that one a little bit. SAP states that its end-to-end processes are documented in the ARIS tool. Can companies get such input as a step to do fit gap analysis before migrating to S4?
Absolutely. So the ARIS tool is a proven technology that is used by many SAP customers and projects. I will also point out Signavio to make a bit marketing for the company we just acquired. So one of the leading business process intelligence providers. I think that's another step, to understand your business processes better and to model your business process going forward. So ARIS as well as Signavio are valid solutions.
All right. Dirk and Falk, final question here before we wrap up. I believe, and I've been saying this all year for the last 15 months, and I think this industry cloud phenomenon or the industry specific capabilities is going to be the single most powerful trend in 2022. Could you each offer a thought or two about what each of you is doing and SAP's overall industry cloud strategy, how this ties together? Because each of you has talked about the need to spread this outside of the banking industry, right? Interconnect with what's going on, see the whole business outcome rather than just a narrow inside the banking industry process. How's the industry cloud helping you with that?
You want to go first, Falk, from an SAP point of view, and I?
Let me go first.
Go second. Yeah.
So I couldn't agree more with you, Bob, first of all. Yeah, I think this is actually where the battleground is going forward, the industry cloud. And, our strategy is to double down with SAP Fioneer as our major partner for the industry cloud. That doesn't mean that they will be the only partner, because, Dirk has to focus with his team on certain business processes as well. He cannot do everything that is industry specific and required by a bank or financial services provider. So they will focus on certain processes. And then there are other processes where we will look for partner solutions to complement these industry specific offerings.
SAP has always been very strong with its ecosystem. So in the past, we had our ecosystem of specialized partners, the big system integrators, the big auditors, and their teams. To me, the industry cloud is now the technical foundation. Yes, it's our technical foundation to build our new applications, but I think it's also the technical foundation for our ecosystem. And as Falk said, I mean, we are doing finance and risk at SAP and SAP Fioneer, but there are a lot of specialized partners out there. And if we all meet on the business technology platform and make our solutions work together, that's a unique value proposition to our clients, and that's in the end the important topic. Yeah. So the industry cloud for SAP Fioneer, that's our foundation. Yeah, that's the basis for our product strategy, and you will see in the future even more applications from SAP Fioneer on the BTP. But I think the same is true also for our ecosystem, and then in the end we have a good process coverage for our clients, and that's what counts finally.
Great.
Yeah, especially when you think about areas like customer engagement and customer experience. Yeah, I see huge potential for partners to help us differentiate here, because there is not a one size fits all solution that the market is looking for. This is actually where the banks want to differentiate. This is where they need to have choice, and I think that's exactly where a lot of the partners will come in and help us coming up with very innovative solutions that go along with SAP and SAP Fioneer.
And then to add one thing, Bob, the beauty is, and that goes back to the topic we mentioned in the beginning, we see a merging of industries, and the BTP, the business technology platform, is the platform which can be used in all the industries. So if we are successfully to build really compelling applications, cloud solutions, processes in the BTP, it's easy for the other industries to connect, and then you have your ecosystem and platform approach.
Yeah, Dirk, sort of we hear the term future-proof a lot, but that offers a very nice approach to that. That sounds great. Well, Dirk, Falk, thank you so much. This has been a fascinating discussion about what's going on in the banking world and what SAP is doing, both with SAP Banking and SAP Fioneer. So thanks for your great perspectives and insights.
Thanks a lot for having us. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Absolutely. And to you in the audience, thanks for being with us. Thanks for your great questions. We hope you'll check out the SAP Industries Live page on LinkedIn for future discussions. And on behalf of SAP Banking and SAP Fioneer, I want to say thanks to all of you for being with us for this discussion.